That was the last argument we had after Kathy was served the divorce papers. But before we went to court, we both pretended to play roles for each other. I pretended I still wanted to work things out, even though the coffin had already been nailed shut on our marriage the moment the private investigator showed me the photo of her kissing Roger Smith. By the 5th minute of the first video, our marriage was already dead, and I was burying it. As for Kathy, I'm not entirely sure what she was pretending. Maybe she thought her ongoing infidelity was something worth discussing. Or perhaps she believed we could somehow come to a reasonable agreement to stay married while she continued sleeping with Roger. My wife, Kathy Wilson Anderson, is a lawyer, and finding ways to be reasonable in completely unreasonable situations is her job. At home, it seemed like she applied that skill voluntarily. Ben, be reasonable, was a phrase she often used during our 25 years of marriage, but after I served her the papers, she introduced a new one, fragile male ego. Ben, this isn't about me or who I am or am not sleeping with. It's about your fragile male ego. I loathe that phrase. Of course, we didn't get into much depth during that final conversation before she decided to drop it. Ben, if you could see beyond your fragile male ego, you'd understand that this isn't a threat to you at all. With that, she gave me her most reassuring, reasonable smile. I don't love him, and in a few months, we'll both move on. You and I can still ride off into the sunset together. I have to give Kathy some credit. She was bold. As she spoke, she absent-mindedly ran her fingers along the stem of her favorite glass of wine, sitting next to a manila folder on the kitchen table. In that folder was, of course, my divorce filing, along with several of the most damning photos the private investigator had managed to capture. In other words, the Titanic has hit the iceberg, the orchestra is playing Nearer My God to Thee, and the women and children are being led to the lifeboats. Meanwhile, Kathy is saying that if I can just be reasonable and get past my fragile male ego, we might still make it to port. The thing is, Kathy thinks we're still negotiating, but I'm no longer interested in resolving anything. I want the conversation to end. Kathy, let's pause for a second, I said, cutting her off mid-sentence. You keep talking about my fragile male ego, saying that if I can get past it, we'll be fine. What exactly do you mean by fragile male ego? She frowned, a little offended by the interruption. Well, it's very simple, Ben. You're afraid of competition. You're afraid that somehow you won't measure up. She smiled at me again, gently, with a touch of condescension. But darling, you don't need to worry. You're my guy, my man. And what about Roger? I asked. She blushed. Well, Roger is just a toy, like a workout machine. I'm not planning to replace you or stop loving you. You have nothing to worry about. I gave her a slightly frowning, slightly bewildered look. The kind of look husbands use when they want their wives to feel superior, usually so we can get away with something. So just to be clear, you think I'm worried that you're going to stop loving me or replace me with a younger model? She nodded, her gentle smile widening. Exactly. And you think that makes me a little vulnerable, that I need reassurance? I stared at her for a moment, trying to piece it all together. And somehow this vulnerability is tied to the fact that I'm a man? She patted my arm gently, condescendingly. Oh dear, it's not just you. All men have fragile egos. Her smile broadened. Part of what we, as wives, do is support our men. Keep your confidence up. I wanted to yell at her and ask how in God's name sleeping with a 25-year-old was supposed to support me, but I knew that would only make her dig her heels in. I wasn't surprised that Kathy bought into all that pop psychology nonsense about women being stronger than men. We'd been dancing around that crap for years, but I was tired. We were almost at the end, and I was done dancing. You know, Kathy, I said, staring her down, you've been using that phrase for a long time. I've been letting it slide, but one thing I've learned after 25 years with you is to pick my battles. However, if there's anything I want to leave you with today, it's the understanding of how utterly ridiculous this entire argument is. She started to object, but I kept going. The reason people focus on the fragile male ego is because it seems abnormal. It's like in those videos. How many times have you seen a guy get hit where it hurts the most? She nodded, about to let me continue before pulling me back in. Plenty. Yes, it's funny, at least to women, because men always seem so strong, and then one thing makes most of them fall down, curl up, and vomit. Suddenly, the big, tough, scary man is a vulnerable ball, gasping for air. You get what I mean? Yes, but... Wait, watching a woman in the same situation isn't funny, is it? She nodded, still hesitant. No, but why not? If one person doubling over in pain is funny, why not the other? Because that's violence. A man hitting a woman is violence, and a woman hitting a man isn't? She hesitated, but then nodded. Yes, that's different. I shook my head. Never mind, we're getting off track. The point is, watching a woman in pain isn't funny because we're taught to see women as fragile and weak. So the idea of making a woman cry isn't strange or funny. Do you understand? She seemed confused. I don't get where you're going with this. I took a deep breath, trying to put it together. The point is that it's the same with the ego. When I go to work every day, my friends joke about my sexual abilities, my size, my belly, my thinning hair, and anything else they can tease me about. Now imagine if your friends did the same to you. Imagine walking into the office and immediately getting comments on every area you feel insecure about. How would that make you feel? She sighed. God, I can't imagine a woman ever treating her friend like that. And certainly not all the time. But that's exactly what happens with us. The big, strong man. We shrug it off, throw back a comment, and move on with our day. I was the one gently patting her arm now, condescendingly. I wondered if she noticed. The truth is, the only place I allow myself to feel fragile and vulnerable is here, in this home. This is where I take off the armor, show my soft underbelly, and trust that you won't take advantage of it. What you see as my fragile male ego is just me letting my guard down in the only place in the world where I feel safe enough to be fragile. Do you understand? Kathy smiled and nodded. I could see her gathering strength for another attack, but she said, but that's exactly the point, Ben. Here, you're safe. You can be vulnerable. I'm not going to leave or throw away what we have because of a fling. I removed my glasses and rubbed the bridge of my nose. You still don't get it, Kathy, I said, my frustration rising. I believed you when you told me I was the best lover in the world, even though I knew that wasn't true. Hell, in the last 25 years, I've only had one lover. Not exactly a lot of experience. I forced a small smile. I believed you when you said I was enough for you, that my size was perfect, that my body still excited you. I took you at your word, even when I knew you were just flattering me. I chose to be vulnerable with you because I thought I could trust you. I slammed my hand on the table, my voice rising. And now I'm so glad that you... Her eyes widened, and she fell silent. I took a deep breath, trying to regain control of my emotions. About 6 months ago, I started noticing that you weren't being so careful with my vulnerability. I noticed the way you acted when I took off my shirt, how you'd close your eyes when we had sex. I picked up on the snide comments about needing to hit the gym or give up beer. She stared at me in stunned silence. I pushed on. I noticed that you stopped telling me about your day, stopped asking about mine. I noticed that you weren't around me anymore, even before you started sleeping with Roger. I realized that you were no longer a safe space for me. You weren't going to protect my vulnerability. Ben, she started, but stopped, the lawyer in her at a loss for words. I looked her in the eyes, my gaze unwavering. Her eyes glistened with something I couldn't quite place, and I knew mine were just as intense. I tried to fight back the emotion, but I couldn't. Kathy, I tried. I took you out to dinner more often. I complimented your clothes. I tried to plan more vacations, more time just for us. I tried to show you that you were special to me. I dressed better. I started going to the gym. I hoped. No, I wanted you to remember how special I once was to you. I looked down at my hands, trying to hold it together. Not now. I couldn't let her see the tears. I couldn't be vulnerable anymore. Enough. It didn't work. You found reasons to cancel dinners, reasons why we couldn't go on vacation. When I complimented your clothes, I could see you worrying whether I noticed you were dressing for him. And when I sent flowers to your office, I never got a response. I lifted my gaze to meet hers. Later, when you started picking fights just to avoid having sex with me, I knew I had failed. You had forgotten that I was special, and you were already on your way to no longer being special to me. I never picked fights to avoid sex, she said. I groaned. Seriously? That's her takeaway, Kathy? Can you just be honest, at least with yourself, if not with me? You've been pushing me away for 6 months. She glanced up at me briefly before lowering her gaze again, her hands still resting in her lap. I shrugged. Anyway, yes, back then, my ego was fragile. I spent a lot of time in the office with the door closed, mourning our relationship. I tried to put on a strong face, the one I wore at work, so you wouldn't see how deeply you hurt me. I started finding reasons to leave the house, to avoid spending time with someone who could hurt me, and who now so clearly wanted to. She looked stunned, but I smiled slightly, gently patting her hand. But you'll be glad to know that my fragile ego has healed. I found other things to occupy my time, and other people who made me feel special. Her eyes flickered with confusion. I smirked. No, I didn't cheat on you. But I did notice that some of the women at the gym didn't seem all that turned off by my body these days. I paused. Anyway, by the time I had proof and was talking to a lawyer, you wouldn't have even known my fragile male ego had ever been hurt. Are we done? I thought we were. I had said what I needed to say. I thought maybe, just maybe, she had finally heard me. Maybe now we could move on. But of course, I was married to a lawyer, and there was no such thing as a lost case. But Ben, there was never any need for this, she pleaded, her voice raising. Yes, I admit I've been distracted lately, but I never stopped loving you. In my world, you were always number one. I'm sorry I didn't see how fragile you were, how much I hurt you. She kept talking, weaving beautiful pictures with her words, but I wasn't listening. That word again, fragile. She still didn't get it, and I realized she probably never would. I wasn't trying to be nice anymore. Kathy, stop, I snapped, my anger slipping through despite my attempts to control it. I took a long, slow breath and exhaled, trying to regain my composure. You still don't get it, do you? You still think this is all about my fragility, my fragile male ego, right? Honey, there's nothing shameful about it. All men, all people, we all have fragile egos, and we trust those we care about to protect them. She nodded. Well, yes, of course, but men are especially fragile. I leaned in, as if about to share a secret, trying to keep the sarcasm at bay despite how she was pushing me. Kathy, I've spent most of the last 25 years trying to figure out how to be honest with you without hurting your ego. When you'd ask me if that lipstick suited you or if that dress made you look fat, I had to find an answer that wouldn't hurt your feelings, but also wouldn't let you leave the house looking like a clown or an overstuffed sausage. Her face turned red, her eyes wide with shock. She wasn't used to this kind of honesty. I found myself almost amused. Kathy, when I say things like, honey, I'm not sure that lipstick goes with that blouse, or could you change? I'm not comfortable with our neighbors drooling over your chest all night. I was giving you an out. I pretended I wasn't sure of my words, or that my fragile male ego was at risk. And do you know why I did that? She shook her head. Because I didn't want to put your ego at risk, I said, my voice flat. That's nonsense, Kathy fumed. I can remember several times when you were pretty clear about something not looking good. I smirked. Oh, I admit I messed up from time to time. I think we both remember what happened when I commented on your eyeshadow looking like that of an adulteress, or when I said, yes, that dress does make your butt look big. Those big hurt eyes, the cold thanks for your honesty, and a week or two of freezing temperatures in the bedroom. I shook my head. I quickly realized that honesty is definitely overrated when it comes to giving my wife my opinion. So, you've been lying to me for 25 years? Kathy's voice was sharp, like she was about to explode. I sighed, ready to wrap this up. Let's just say I gave you a selective and carefully edited version of the truth. I told you that you were the most beautiful woman in the world, that your trips to the gym took a decade off your age. I gave you extravagant compliments, just like the ones you gave me, to show you how I see you, and to boost your fragile ego. My ego isn't fragile, Kathy, I said. You have a fat ass. Her expression was one of shock, as if I had just punched her in the chest. I smiled, continuing, you have stretch marks, your breasts have sagged, your hair roots are graying, and your teeth are yellowing. Those expensive creams you buy can't hide the wrinkles on your face or your double chin. Darling, it's time to think about aging gracefully, because fighting it isn't working anymore. She gasped, her eyes wide, and I could see the blows had hit their mark. Kathy, I said, my tone cold. Remember the feeling you're experiencing right now. Think about it. Now imagine I told you I was sleeping with some young thing at the office, someone 10 or 20 years younger than you, with a firm butt and full breasts. She's trying all her tricks on me, because our relationship is still new and she's just getting started. Imagine I come home to you after being with her a couple of times a week. How's your ego doing, Kathy? Feeling a bit fragile? Kathy looked pale, murmuring, yes. I nodded. That's what you never understood. I'm not blind. You're not the most beautiful woman in the world. Hell, I could probably walk outside and find half a dozen women in our neighborhood who are objectively more attractive than you. Her head dropped, and I could see tears on her cheeks. But, I continued, you were the most beautiful, the funniest, the best to me. I saw all your flaws, and I cherished them. Your breasts sagged because you used them to feed our children. You have a big backside because you carried them in your body. You have laugh lines because we laughed together. I looked at the road map of your body and saw the miles we traveled together. I cherished every one of those miles and the marks they left. She looked up at me, and it felt like the final scene of a boxing movie, the one just before the knockout. She sobbed, her voice breaking. And now, what do you see? Lord, I thought, she's practically asking for it. It would be so easy. Part of me, hell, most of me, wanted to deliver that knockout punch, the one that would leave her so shattered that she'd spend the next few years jumping from bed to bed, trying to prove she still had it. There she was, chin up, almost waiting for it to drop. But here's the thing. It wasn't about delivering that knockout anymore. In truth, it wasn't even about Kathy. She had looked in the mirror, saw the years passing, and convinced herself that the fountain of youth could be found in the arms of a younger man. And when she got caught, she tried to stand tall, throwing out challenges and clever words. But now we both knew the truth. She was weak, small, and would be left alone in the end. As for me, I had already cried my tears. In the car, behind my office door, in a park a mile from home. I spent months hiding my pain from my wife while I fought and mourned the death of my marriage. Now, I had to plan the rest of my life. The first step was to ask myself what kind of man I wanted to see in the mirror every morning. A guy who took cheap shots? A guy who won some pointless competition against a broken woman who ruined her own life? A bully? No. I wanted to see what I saw now. A merciful man, a good man, an honest man. I took another deep breath and placed my hand over hers once more. What do I see now? I asked. Now, I see a woman with whom I spent some of the best years of my life. I see someone I trusted with my vulnerability until I couldn't trust her anymore. I squeezed her hand. I see someone I will truly miss. She stood up, forcing a smile that was crooked and only highlighted the tears. It doesn't have to be this way, she said. We can find our way back. No, we can't, I sighed. You're right about one thing, Kathy. I'm not fragile, but my trust was. And I'll never be able to take off my armor again. I'll never be able to let you in. Maybe we could live together, sleep in the same bed, go on vacations, make some memories. But the truth is, I'll always be watching you, wondering if you're judging my body, wondering if you're comparing me in bed to someone else, wondering if you're staying because you love me or just out of habit. I'm not going to live like that, Kathy. I think I've got another 30 or 40 years ahead of me, and I don't want to spend them with someone I don't trust, pretending to feel safe and secure when I don't. I don't deserve that, I added. And honestly, if you really loved me, you wouldn't ask me to go through that. For all her legal expertise, Kathy was surprisingly transparent, at least to me. I could see it in her eyes as she tested out counterarguments, weighing them, trying to find something that would stick. Then, I saw the moment she realized it was truly over. The light in her eyes dimmed, and I knew. Once Kathy decided not to fight, the divorce was quick. We swapped jewelry for tools, and the TV for my partially restored Firebird. We sold the house, split everything down the middle, and managed to save a lot on lawyer fees. The thing about divorce is that even when it's finalized, it never really feels like the end. I still see Kathy regularly at our kids' birthdays, anniversaries, and Christmases. Sometimes, she brings a date, and I usually have a woman by my side. For the past year, it's been the same woman. From the look in Kathy's eyes, I can tell she knows what that means. I try not to gloat, but sometimes my ego, well, it's a little fragile.